I am humbled and honored to bring you this episode today featuring Sav Power. Sav Power shares their true story of intense trauma that they experienced many years ago. There is a shocking twist at the end that I don't know if you would ever guess. And most of all, it is a story of triumph and transformation. There is a trigger warning on today's episode. Sav's story includes themes of stalking, cyberbullying, and cybersexual assault. So if that is not for you, move along to another episode. If you'd like to come along for this heartbreaking and heartwarming journey with Sav, I'm so stoked to share this with you. Sav is a multifaceted coach and storyteller with a passion for storytelling, creativity, and personal transformation. With a rich background in media visual arts, Sav brings their artistic vision to the coaching industry by empowering trauma survivors to break free from their past, by reshaping your internal narrative and transforming your story into a powerful force for good in the world. Without further ado, I am thrilled to bring you my friend, Sav Power. Put your hand on your heart, look up at the sky, smile and say, hey, I'm alive. Thanks for being alive with me today. Welcome to Be Alive with Kate Manser, and today I am here with my dear friend, Sav Power, who I have had the honor and pleasure of knowing for many years. We have this signature stick, which before we became as like close and good friends in like actual contact as we are now, for years, we would just constantly end up at the same events.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Here again.
Yeah.
Like, good to see you. Like we loved each other from afar.
Yes.
I swear it was like every media, business, entrepreneurship.
Totally. It was like once a year, like clockwork, just like run into Kate Manser.
Yeah. It was like, okay, great. We got to hang out. And then finally we're like, okay, let's actually start a friendship here. Let's start hanging out and talking.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten to know Sav, it's just been like peeling the layers of this onion of so many cool stories, so many amazing talents that you have. And we also have a lot in common. We both are multi-passionate individuals.
Blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Like we were actually just talking about how the idea of doing something, you know, routine and having to show up every single day. There's this person in Austin who runs this amazing group where she has led a group to do a cold plunge and meditation at Barton Springs in Austin for how long?
Like 5 years or something like that, like every Friday. And like she like rarely misses. And I just look at that and I just go, like, in what world, you know, for me personally. Like I think of like if she ever asked me to fill in, I'd be like, oh my God, one Friday. You know what I mean? Like 6:30 a.m. too. Like, so she's there at like 5:30 or 6 setting up.
And still we managed to, despite our terror in routine, we still managed to do a lot of cool shit. Sav is an amazing filmmaker. She has her own media company called Miro Media. Sav is also a coach specializing in trauma. And what else do you do?
What else? Yeah, I mean, documentary filmmaker is on there. I also just like to say like ADHDer, you know, lots of hobbies, lots of random things. But yeah, I mean, right now I'm focused mostly on the coaching. Building my YouTube still is kind of in the back of my mind. And yeah, finishing my first documentary film.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sav is a very talented creator, and that's one thing that I really admire about you. And like, there's so much. Like, I think I'm definitely going to have you back on the show because I would love to dedicate a whole episode to your creative process and what you've learned along the way. But what you've been focusing on a lot in your coaching and really in your life right now is what we came today to talk about. And
the big F word.
Yeah. Forgiveness, trauma. And I'm really passionate about telling meaningful stories on on Be Alive, and you have an incredible, meaningful story that I think the people need to hear today. So Sav Power, we're just going to dive right in and, talk to me a little bit about how you started your forgiveness journey, what happened, and what age are we going back to first?
Okay. Well, similar to You Might Die Tomorrow, I would say forgiveness is one of those topics that people almost can be polarized on. Like some people hate talking about forgiveness, hearing about forgiveness. So yeah, I guess I would just say to anyone listening, open your minds and we're going to talk about forgiveness, hopefully in a new way that you haven't heard before. And if it's something that makes your eyes roll and you're just like the fuck, I want to forgive, my abuser, or whoever. I felt that way very much so too at the beginning of my journey. And ultimately forgiveness has been the biggest shift in me personally and in my transformation. So that being said, we'll go back to when I was 18. So, or 16 to 18. So I was what I like to call a spotlight kid as a kid. So I loved the spotlight. I was in theater and I was a performer and I had these big dreams and aspirations. I wanted to be on Broadway, and I was just this really big, bright little light, right, in my childhood. And also I would say the black sheep of the family as well. That was not something that my siblings did as much or were as much that way. And so at a certain point, my parents pretty quickly realized you need to be at an art school. It was because we were driving all around the coast trying to get me to the voice lessons and the dance lessons and the this and the that. And they were we got to get this girl to an art school. So I heard about one through a teacher called Interlochen.
That's a really big school.
It's a huge music school. Yeah, huge music school. And then they have expanded since then into all the other art forms. So they have a camp, but then they also have an academy.
So this is your last years of high school, or you had graduated high school already?
Yeah, so this is my last years of high school. Okay. So junior year is when I first went. So I basically applied, got in, through the skin of our teeth. We figured out how to pay for it. And I got to go to Interlochen. It was this big deal because it was this I came from just a really small town, coastal town where I was the only kid, one of the only kids, handful of kids that was into this kind of stuff, So I go to this school after a few years there. So the first year was great. Loved it. Was very into the theater. I did struggle to get cast, which I remember being a rude awakening for someone who did very well in the small town. Was oh, now I'm playing with the big fish. And that was a big deal. But aside from that, I had great friends. I just felt I belonged. I felt I'd found my place. So going into my senior year, I actually transferred to the film department. So I was more aligned in what I was doing and the creatives. I had my great group of friends. So I'd met these girls. So I had a roommate. We'll call her Kayla. And then I had a best friend. We'll call her Sarah. And then a third friend of theirs that became my friend was Charlotte. And so we were this Fast and Furious girl gang,
group of four,
one of each type, Sex and the City meets Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, at Interlochen. And we were every dinner in the dining hall, we ate dinner together. We had I think we caused a food fight once, and you weren't supposed to have slumber parties, but we did that shit all the time. We would just pull our mattresses off the bed and have the girls over, because me and one of the girls were roommates, so we saw each other all the time. And it was amazing. I had always struggled with girlfriends, just growing up. I had been bullied massively by girls. So to have this tight knit girl gang where we all just felt hot shit and cool and fun, and it was just such a blessing. And that lasted for a few months until I met my first boyfriend. Mm-hmm. So interestingly enough, the girls really wanted me to lose my virginity. So I think two of us were virgins, but the other two were sexually active. And it was this big thing of when we're me and the other girl gonna lose our virginity, we were 17, 18-year-olds. And they actually introduced me to the boy that I then started dating and started becoming sexually active with. But then after that happened, they started to get more and more frustrated with how much time I was spending with him, how much I actually liked this guy. Oh, they didn't actually like him that much anymore. And because we were roommates, me and one of the girls, and I was using the room for sex, that became a point of tension, especially because it was against the rules. You can't she couldn't go to a school counselor and be hey, my roommate, she couldn't talk about it. And so it created this divide between me and my roommate. And none of us just like had the skills, I feel like, to be, dealing with and talking about that kind of stuff at that age. And so things started to get really tense. And it was around that time that the first anonymous message started popping up on my computer. So I had a Tumblr account that was just like blogging and, silly girl stuff. And I started getting anonymous messages through the Tumblr account that were like targeting my sex life and like saying stuff like intimate things that like really only these girls could know, like about my boyfriend, about me, about us having sex. Like, I did not know who else could be writing these messages. It only made sense that it was these girls. Because, like, I don't think my parents didn't even know that they knew I was dating him, but they didn't know if we were sexually active. Because, again, it was against the rules. And so, long story short, like, this starts to go on for months, and I'm, like, breaking down. My parents know at this point. I had called them. They're like, it's got to be the girls, right? Like, who else would be doing this? Doesn't make sense. I confront my roommate. She denies it. I find more messages that she's been getting as well from Anonymous. Yep. And this goes on for like months and months. The friendships start falling apart. My mental health starts crumbling. I just like look around in every classroom I'm in and every hallway I'm passing through, looking at everyone going like, who hates me this much? Wow. Like, who did I hurt? What did I do? Who did I piss off? Like, someone is coming after me, like in such a serious way and I just like could not figure out who it was. There were a few details from the account. It was called Artful Comments, which was just random and weird. It had this like picture of like these sad, creepy eyes on it.
Whoa, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was just like really, really random. And
this is at a time before cyberbullying was like in the common vernacular.
Correct. Right? This was 2012.
Yeah, this is really,
yeah.
Now people know about it. But back then you were just really suffering alone.
Yeah. I had no like frame of reference for what you're supposed to do. Like people ask me now, like, why didn't you block him?
It probably wasn't even a crime back then.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. It wasn't. And we'll get to that. But like, yeah, I was like, I think I did block him. And I think on Tumblr back then, you couldn't control who could anonymously message you, which sounds insane, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't block them. Or if I did, he kept creating new ones or something like that. Anyways, or the mysterious person kept creating new ones. So anyways, this goes on. I get like my roommate removed. This other girl's like stripped of honors because I'm backtracking. I'm getting ahead of myself. But one night when I'm like super suspicious, I'm like, it's got to be my roommate, right? Like, who else could it be? Blah, 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 blah. So I open her computer and I look and I find that her and the other friend, Charlotte, had been sending messages to each other on Facebook Messenger for months, just tearing me apart. Just like, she's so fucking pathetic, crying in her room all the time. Like, I hope she dies in her fat sex with her boyfriend. I hope her mother dies. Like, just like crazy shit that was like, okay, obviously they must be the perpetrator. Like, they must be the stalker. They hate me. Like, it's clear that here it is with their names on it, And so we got her removed from my room. The other girl was like stripped from honors. It was like this big deal. The friend group is like blown up. And this is all like a few weeks before graduation. And we're just like praying to God that like, I'll graduate, I'll go home, and that'll be the end of it, Because it was like,
and meanwhile, the messages are still coming.
Pretty much, yeah, like once a month. Yeah. And I have like pulled out all my eyebrows at this point due to anxiety, which was something that I did as a kid that I had forgotten was a coping mechanism until this time. It just like popped back into my brain. I'm on antidepressants. Like, I'm just like breaking down all the time.
Senior year of high school. So
yeah,
it's hard as listening to this because you were out of school. That's essentially a boarding school. I associate it
with college, but you're not. Yeah.
Anytime, but to think that you're 17, 18, your brain's not fully developed. You're just, your whole world is closed.
Yeah.
You don't know who to trust.
Yeah. And like sex was such a thing that I really did take very seriously and like treated very sacredly. And I also felt like really angry that I had like done it right. Like, I'd waited so long and I was like, did it with a boy that I loved or whatever, thought that I loved. Like, I felt like I followed all the fucking rules. And then like this shit was still happening, like I was being attacked.
Bad and dirty.
Yeah. Like a slut for like, for sleeping with this one boy, and basically making me feel, like dirty and kind of molested and like, just like icky and like this really gross feeling that you can't really shake. So that was a big piece of it as well. I think just like that internal like molestation My mom uses that word a lot to describe what happened to me, because that's what she kind of saw from the outside too. Was like the same effects that it has on someone who's like physically molested. Was like very similar. So graduation comes, and I actually have like some family from California that comes out to support me. So I have this aunt and uncle who like love the arts, and they've always been supportive of me. And they're like, would love to come, since I'm having such a hard time, would love to come and support me at school. And they come out and they meet my one last friend. My one last friend left, Sarah. And they're like, we'd love to fly Sarah out to California. We've got some extra miles, let's get her out here for a trip so you guys can, after such a rough year, you guys can come hang out in California, blah, blah, blah. So graduation comes and goes. I'm home for like a few weeks, and I get a message that I hung out with a guy friend from home, and I get a message that's like, oh, you enjoyed her. Like, you basically implying that we had sex or something. I don't know, something weird like that. A month later, I'm visiting my boyfriend in Michigan. Artful Comments knows. They send a message, and they're like, oh, are you having a bunch of sex again, basically. So it feels like everywhere I go,
you're being watched.
Yeah.
And you don't know who it is.
No idea who it is. I was starting.
And now you've left the school.
I'll leave the state. I'll leave the school. I'll leave the state. I go home. I go here. Like, it doesn't matter where I go. They know where I am. And I block the girls on everything I know to block them on, right? Because I thought that it was them. At this point, I'm having visions of like someone is watching me through the windows,
Show shit.
Yeah. So after the trip with my boyfriend was when we planned this California trip. So me and my girlfriend go stay with my aunt and uncle, Aunt Joanne and Uncle Charlie, and we stay at their house for a night. They take us to Pixar. They like set up all this cool shit, for us to do, and then it's only a couple days. It's like a whirlwind. We fly Sarah back out to Michigan, and I go home. And my mom, meanwhile, has been diagnosed with breast cancer like a couple months prior, around my graduation. So she comes down with breast cancer, and she's packing for her mastectomy. So she's about to go down for her mastectomy. I think we lived like 3 hours from the airport. So we would schedule things like, mom's going to do her appointment and we're going to ship you off to college, like at the same time. So we get to the airport. So she's packing for her mastectomy, and I'm going to be going off to college. And I get this letter in the mail to my home where I grew up. And the letter basically says, like, shouldn't have taken your clothes off in the presence of a camera. I've got footage of you naked, and I've shared it online with the COD community, the Call of Duty community, which is like random. Kind of like said something like, haha, like, should have known better than to take your clothes off. Kind of like, I got you, basically, was the message that we got. And now we've reached a level
where they're sending a paper letter to your house. To your family's house.
Yep.
Wow. That anybody could have opened.
Exactly. And my mom, like, I just like let out this like guttural scream, apparently. And my mom remembers me saying like, they know where I live, which was my biggest fear at the time, was like, they just sent this to my home. Like, that they know where I live. And she said to my dad, like, this isn't a kid, because kids don't use the mail anymore. And that was like a big turning point in her mind of like, this is probably not the girls. So I go off to college. My dad starts working with, I think he tried the police in Michigan, but like, because it was like out of state, like all this stuff, like they didn't want to touch it. I think that we didn't really get another piece of information until my dad got the idea to sue Tumblr in small claims court for information.
Wow.
So my dad's just like, he's just like a smart cookie. Like, he just comes up with random shit like that that works. He's a big fan of like FedExing, like using FedEx priority to get someone's attention as well. Yeah, he's always like, send your resume with FedEx priority. I'm like, okay, Dad, like that'll work. But in this time, he was very much right with the suing Tumblr thing. And so he sues Tumblr. He's like, makes up a demand letter, just trying to pretend like he sounds like what the fuck he's talking about. And he asked for $10,000, which is the most you could ask for in small claims. But he was like, we don't really want the money. We just want information. But the money was just to get their attention. And it did. And because we lived so remote, our theory is that they just didn't really want to send a representative like out to the middle of California, Northern California, to deal with this dumb cyber case, whatever. And so they just kind of like agreed to settle and like give us some of the information that we were asking for.
Wow.
In exchange for not taking the money or whatever, I think, which we were like, great. He has not told me any of this too. He's like waiting to see like where the shoe drops. So basically, eventually he gets an email back from Tumblr with the information And it doesn't tell us the name and the address, but it gives us the email and the wireless company and the IP address. And the email was like grayowl@earthlink.net, which is like just a very specific domain name. Like it's not like Hotmail or Gmail, you know what I mean? Or like
Earthlink?
Yahoo.
Yeah,
Earthlink.
yeah.
Earthlink was like
tied to your home internet provider usually.
Yeah,
right?
I think Earthlink was like a small California company. I could be wrong. Or maybe it was just like an older company. And then the email, the IP address was kind of the bombshell. And basically the IP address said it was coming from Vacaville, California. And my dad's like head starts spinning because he's like, Savannah doesn't know anyone in Vacaville, California. Like the only people in Vacaville are family. Like that's where my grandma lives. That's where his family has been since the 1800s. Like most of his siblings live there. Like it's where we go to see family. Like that. I never like lived there or anything. And so he's in his mind trying to figure out like how does a routing, like does the internet do something weird? Like your brain's just like
he's just trying to like get back out of the equation.
Yeah.
Who could it be?
Yeah, he's like, how that doesn't make any sense. Like, what a coincidence, kind of, is I think what his mind was like. So he pretty quickly sends it to one of his brothers, and he's like, "Does this IP address like look familiar to you, or mean anything to you?" And they kind of start like investigating together, and pretty quickly they are able to match it to some of their sister's emails that Aunt Joanne that had come out to graduation. And Gmail at the time used to just be able to see people's IP address on the email, and they start matching it to email traffic that they've had with their sister. And they're just kind of like, okay. And so my dad at that point, there was like a dinner scheduled with my aunt and uncle coming up for my dad and my brother. And he was like, well, maybe I could just go to their house and like send myself an email from there just to like be sure, because he just could not bring himself to like accuse a family member of this.
He wants to gather more evidence.
Yeah.
He's a good investigator.
Yes, totally. He really is. So he goes to their house for dinner with my younger brother.
So wait, can I just ask one question? So is this the aunt and uncle that sent you to California
Correct.
that had come out for the graduation? Same
Correct.
aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So Aunt Joanne and Uncle Charlie, the doting, arts loving aunt and uncle is the one that we stayed with, and yeah, they're now the one that we're investigating for this. And so my dad, they had this dinner. It turns out that my dad had also called the wireless company, which was on the demand sheet from Tumblr. And when he called the wireless company and asked about the IP address, the wireless company turned around and called their client, my aunt and uncle, and said, hey, this guy, John Power, is asking after your IP address. So they know we're looking at them, and we know we're looking at them, and they're all sitting at this dinner. Yeah. So it's like this game of cat and mouse, which is just insane. And my dad basically says, like, can I hop on your Wi-Fi? I got to send some business emails. He goes in the bathroom with his iPad and like sends an email to himself and his brother. And that is like how we proved, at least kind of to ourselves, that it was in fact coming from their home.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so he gets back from the dinner, validates this, calls you and tells you?
He doesn't call me yet. He validates it. I think he went to the police too with it, but they didn't want to do anything because my uncle's like a retired assistant district attorney and like kind of a big name in town. Eventually they told me kind of by accident, the detective slipped it to me by accident as I was on the phone with him, and it was like a long thing. But long story short, yeah, they told me a few weeks later, and I just like completely broke down and like into shock. Like I think I went like physically numb for like a week. And
so at that point, you know that it was him?
Yeah, it was. So immediately when we knew it was from their house, we had a strong suspicion, at least, that it was Uncle Charlie, more so than Joanne. However, there's been evidence to show also that maybe she knew more than we thought she did originally. So we don't know how much she knew or didn't know. But yeah, so long story short, that's how we found out that my uncle was my cyber stalker.
so you just left off. You said the detective slipped this, into this conversation, and suddenly like your whole world.
Yeah. My whole world collapses. I remember feeling nothing. Like I remember feeling like this kind of numbness that I like have not luckily experienced since. I remember like that whole week being a blur, like because I was coming home for Thanksgiving in like a week, so it was just like I just gotta get through this week and then I'm gonna go home. But I did have like a strong urge to like cut myself or hurt myself. That night my parents like stayed on the phone with me like the whole night, and I was just breaking down saying I don't know what I'm gonna do, like over and over again. So it was like a pretty dark moment for sure. And I remember like, yeah, I just had a lot of grief. Like, I feel like that Christmas too, I broke up with the boyfriend and I was drinking and partying a lot and just like numbing a lot. And just like the only relief I found, that was when I found meditation. The only relief I found was like staring at a candle and focusing on my breath. Wow. That was the only time I could get relief. And that's actually what got me into Buddhism and what started my whole like journey to where we are today. But yeah, just to backtrack a little bit too, to give the full context, once we figured out who it was, we looked back at the trip that my friend Sarah and I had taken and realized that he probably filmed us while we were at his house, and we just don't really know when or where or how or what he filmed. But her and I both remember feeling weird and feeling like our intuition was skyrocketing.
Spidey senses were bumping.
They were happening, but we were so young and like
18 years old.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is my uncle. I've known forever. Like, I think I even put her fears to, like, I think I even probably reassured her, like, no, like, we're safe here. You know what I mean? Like, I can imagine doing that. So we have a vague memory, too, of, like, hearing something in the night while we were sleeping. And I remember, like, it was like in a horror movie when you hear a sound, like, over here. And for the people listening, I'm, like, pointing to the right. And then I said, Sarah, is that you? And then her voice comes from my left, and she says, no, I thought it was you. And we were both like, ah. And then like I got up and like locked the door. So like, I don't know if someone was in there. I don't know if it was just a fluke. I have this also like weird memory. And I don't know if this is just like made up that the bookshelf had a door. Like, I don't know if this is like some weird shit my brain made up, but there were a lot of books in the room, I think. And I think I made up somewhere in my mind, or maybe they have a secret door, but that there was a secret bookshelf door. And I don't know if that's true, but like to this day, it like haunts my brain. But yeah, I don't know if someone was in there or what. But
and meanwhile, at this point, you've already been through hell by the time of that trip, right? You lost your whole friend group. You're feeling like people are watching you. You don't know who's doing it, and then it just keeps progressing. You have this weird night at their house. Then you get this letter.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah, and there's all kinds of other weird details like that we looked back on and just went, oh my God, like he'd been calling my mom the whole time because he's a lawyer, he's an attorney. So she was calling him for advice, and he'd be giving her advice on how to help me, or being a listening, compassionate ear, and sending me flowers and jelly beans one day and then sending me an anonymous message like the next, you know? And then we also like uncover more family rumors, or like we start to realize he sends anonymous Valentine's Day cards to all the women in the family. And it's been an ongoing joke for years that they're from Anonymous, like literally. And everyone just goes, oh, haha, that's Uncle Charlie, you know, like creepy. To all the women, only the women in the family get them?
Yeah.
Creepy.
I mean, why? Why not?
Yeah, why? Exactly.
Him and Joanne, right?
Yeah. And then like and he also was caught red-handed stalking one of my aunts in the 80s. So he's been stalking women in the family since the 80s. So I'm not the first, probably not the last. And we don't really know how many other people they have. But when we confronted my aunt, which we did sit down with her and all the evidence and told her everything, she basically said like, this is a pattern. And I'm so sorry. She knew. Yeah. And she was like, I saw him looking at your pit, you know, like kind of hemmed and hawed around. Like, we were kind of like, how long did you know? And how, like, she was like, I knew something was up, but I didn't know how bad. And we were like, I don't know.
The whole family knew that you were being stalked, and she knew deep down.
Yeah. So denial.
Thing, knows, but wow.
Yeah.
So now it's out in the open.
Yep.
And you guys opt to do criminal charges at that time, or no? Or?
So yeah, we were kind of unable to like, so I say unable. I think it was a misdemeanor. They basically decided, they were like, he never made a credible threat. He was very careful. He waited till I turned 18. And he never made a credible threat. He basically like made it so that we couldn't do anything. The only thing we could have gotten would be if he had filmed us, but we'd have to get a warrant to like get on his computer and see if he had footage of us anywhere. They kind of just like encouraged us to deal with it as in the family, you know, deal with it in the family and that kind of thing. And I think we were so just destroyed by then that I don't think we had the capacity to like do much about it aside from we just told everyone because we wanted anyone with young kids in the family to know,
to be aware.
Yeah. And that's when other stories started coming out, and we were like, okay, like clearly this is, you know, just like a pattern in the family. And we kind of got us, it kind of became an us versus them. Like it just became like, and for a few holidays and stuff, I was kind of expected to go, and we did go and be in the room with him, which I look back now, I'm like, that's insane. but like we just were like in this weird area of like trying to deal with it, and they were acting like they were going to do therapy and all, I don't know. And so looking back, I guess I wish we'd done more, but also like what the fuck do you even do? Yeah, right. There's no manual for that, and people are always like, why didn't you do this and do that? And then it's like we were just surviving at that point, you know?
It was a different time. Now it's like we know that like there's less gray area with that stuff, right? Like this predatory behavior, whereas I'm not excusing him at all, but just like, man, I can't imagine how hard that was for you back then, because like the greater understanding of what abuse and the many forms it can take. So you're on like gaslighting, your society's gaslighting you of like what even abuse is, right? I can only imagine. And then, trying to
and just reconciling. I had such a hard time putting like his face and who I know to be my uncle with the comments. Like for the longest time, I don't know that I still can reconcile those. Like they were two different identities and probably always will be, you know, like mapping those onto each other was like an incredible mindfuck. Yeah.
Wow. So how did you go on? So you had obviously a few holidays where I'm sure it's like hard to remember things because everything was so crazy.
Yeah.
You're trying to like fit back into this family, also pick up the pieces, and like you've been severely traumatized. What happened?
Yeah. So I feel like we basically decided like I was no longer going to go to like family thing. Like I just pulled out. My mom pulled out with me, and it was me and her would stay home for like
you were
couple
going to go
Christmases.
To therapy with him?
No. Sorry, Christmases and stuff.
Oh, Christmases
and stuff.
Oh, I thought you family therapy. I was like,
no. Yeah, no. No, but they did offer restorative justice. My aunt was like very into restorative justice, and she was like, would you want to do it? And I was like too angry at the time. And now I'm like, I would love to do that now. But now they won't talk to me. So that's like a whole other thing. But they did say that he went to therapy, and he wrote me this note that was like, I apologize for sending 16 messages to Savannah, blah, blah, blah. Which just felt, I don't know, like not enough at the time for sure. I just feel like there was never a way for me to get proof that he changed or that he's healed or that he's not doing this again. My biggest thing has just been, I want to make sure he's not doing this again. Like that's just been my, like, I don't know what I've wrestled with, I guess, over the last 10 years. But that wasn't the question you asked. I like got off track.
For those listening, just imagine Sav is a person that I know to be you have an enormous heart and you really care about helping other people. And so I can only imagine like the struggle of trying to balance healing yourself with also just being preoccupied with the fallout within your family, as well as like other people that he might have hurt or will hurt in the future. Yeah.
And we've like, yes, I've been trying to make this documentary, but it's taken me a decade. So who has he hurt in a decade that I've been working on this fucking film? Like that weighs on me, that it's like taking me this long. And I wrestle with a lot. Am I going to name him? Am I going to put his real name out there? And do I want that on my conscience? And is that what this is about? Is it just about getting back at him? You know, and I want to go more in depth on that because I know now that it's not, but it started there. It started as a revenge film for sure.
So
like I was like,
angry.
I'm gonna get you.
The first few years when you're like reconciling everything.
So I was angry.
It went into anger.
Yeah, the primary emotion was for sure anger.
And how did anger show up for you?
Good question. I found something recently that was like that I had written down at the time, and it was like, it was the kind of thing where it's like whenever my life wasn't working or whenever something was happening and I was breaking down or something went wrong or whatever, it was like, it's because of this. It's because he did this to me. It's because of that. Like, it's because of him. Like, this is why I'm not succeeding in school, or this is why my siblings and I aren't close anymore. This is why, like, I am the way that I am, drinking and partying and sleeping. I can't stop sleeping with men. I couldn't figure out why. Like, it's because of what he did to me, you know? And so everything just kept rooting back to that. And that for me was how the anger showed up, was like this spiraling back to what happened for every problem in my life.
Intense blame. Yeah.
Intense blame and resentment. Yeah. And that was the biggest thing when I started working with a forgiveness coach that she pointed out, really was like, she said to me, I'm going to help you like learn how to be more responsible in the story that you tell. And I remember being like, pissed. Like I was like, fuck you. Yeah, like be more responsible. Like how dare you? You know, like I felt so angry. And that was kind of how I knew that she had something I needed to learn.
Because it triggered.
Because it was so triggering. Every time she would talk, I was like, I'm never gonna forgive this fucker. Like I really thought I was a special snowflake, and I was like, I remember raising my hand. So I saw her at South by Southwest was like how I found her, I think. I remember raising my hand in the Q&A and being like, do you think everyone is capable of forgiveness? You know, like I was that guy. Like I was like, not for me, never gonna work, you know?
Yeah.
Which I love now.
Oh my gosh. So this happened, you know, you're in college, right? And then what age? The forgiveness coach was kind of recent. We're like 10 years plus out, right?
Yeah. So the forgiveness coach was like 4 years after the fact. So
4 years after. Okay.
Yeah. So for the first 3 years, I was just drinking and partying, numbing, having sex. Like I was on this shameful like cycle of sex addiction that I didn't know how to break. I was working with a really qualified therapist in Boston who helped me a lot with validation. Like that was a big theme, was like I needed to be validated in what had happened to me because my family, extended family, was so invalidating, right? And so that was a big piece for a while, was just being able to validate my own pain, my own experience. And then I started working on the film my senior year of college. We were in a film class, and he played Sarah Pauli's Stories We Tell. Have you seen that one?
No.
Oh, you gotta watch that one. So she does this amazing film where she's investigating her biological parents. Like, I think she didn't know who her mom was, and so she's like investigating that in the film. And it's like she's directing it, but it's also about her investigating this part of her life. And I was like, you can do that? Like, you can make a film about, like, I didn't know you can make a documentary. Yeah, like I thought documentary was like about penguins, you know? I didn't know you could do this with documentary. And the other cool thing she did that I loved was she, all throughout the film, she has all this like Super 8 footage playing of her mom or her parents or like whatever. And I remember thinking throughout the whole film, like, God, she's so lucky. She has all this like amazing Super 8 footage of her parents. How cool as a filmmaker that you just like find that and can use it. And then at the end, she reveals that they're all staged. Like, and so it's this meta thing where she's like created, like, she's really played with like what's subjective and what's objective in the documentary. Like, it's like, oh, I was taking all that as factual and as memory, and it's not. Like, it's her interpretation of what it might have looked like, you know, or something like that. And it blew my mind as far as like, just what documentary can be. And so I started my film really like because of that movie. I started diving deep into personal cinema and watched a bunch of the famous ones. And what a beautiful art form also. I love personal documentary.
Too.
It's so cool. And just like, I know one of my other favorites is, I forget what it's called, but it's like a dad and he's just filming, his daughter's like going off to college, and it's just like about him processing that. And it was like, I don't know, I just love all the like home video footage and the like, of course she hated him at the time for doing it, but like the poor family members of the people who love personal cinema. But yeah, I just think as an art form it's really interesting. And so
you got inspired.
I got inspired, and I felt like this is something I have the skill set to do. And I wanted revenge. Like, I was mad, and I really wanted to out him. Yeah. And I wanted, like, yeah, it was definitely like just to get him back, kind of, or like get revenge, out him, probably public shame on some level. But what I found was like interviewing my parents, for instance, was so insightful in that, like, you know, when you go through something like this, you're just surviving after, and you're just moving. You're just, how can we move forward? How can we move forward? How can we move forward? And you never like sit down and just be like, what the fuck just happened to us? Yeah. You know? And like how powerful it was to just sit in front of my parents and be like, I'd made myself the center of the whole thing, which granted, like in some versions I was, but like I sat down across from people and just said, like, what was this like for you? And like got to hear from them. And that was really powerful for my parents. I did it with my roommate at the time from school, because she also was a victim of this, you know, like she wasn't doing it. Yeah. And we didn't believe her. And like she was doing other shit, but it wasn't it, you know what I mean? So being able to like, yeah, sit across from the people in my life and ask them what it had been like for them, for the other victims really in this case, was like game changing for just like my narrative of what had happened. But then the other really interesting thing that happened was I started to pick up other people's narratives and make them my own. So like, my mom says at one point in the film, like, you didn't have any friends by the time you graduated. And like something about the way she said that like really stuck in my brain and like became part of my story of like, I didn't have any friends. And so then I'd catch myself telling the story to people and saying like quotes from my documentary like it became mine. It became woven with mine. And so part of my forgiveness work was also to like really unpack the story that I was carrying and where all those narratives had come from and start to come to my own, after kind of taking what I feel like forgiveness work was for me was taking the loaded words out of things, like saying my life crumbled, crumbled is a what's the word? Metaphor, So what really happened? Like, what are the facts? What are the objective things that happened that we can actually look at and then like tell your story kind of from a more responsible place with that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you start, you raise your hand at South by to this forgiveness coach to be like, I'm the one that's going to prove you wrong, that, right? And then, so then you hire them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Think, like you're so against forgiveness. And yet there was a part of you who desired to work with them. Do you think it came from a place of, I'm sure it's complex. It's not just one thing of wanting to prove them wrong, or was there a part of you that was like, maybe this is for me?
Yeah, I think it was both. Like so there were like three things I would say. One, it was like, I want to prove them wrong. Two, it was like, they have something I want, which was freedom from their past.
You could sense
I could tell. Yeah. And that neutrality around it. Like I couldn't talk about what happened to me without crying, but she could. And I recognized that. And then the third thing was like, that would make a cool fucking film if like I changed as a human, So I hired her for the documentary, like to be a cool part of the documentary. And it ended up just like changing my life. It almost derailed the documentary because I think I became so peaceful with it that I slowed down a lot on the film, actually, now that I think about it. But I mean, I'm so grateful because it gave me my life back. So,
oh gosh. So then was there a moment, or through the course of some months working with this, it slowly opened up into you realizing that you were putting down these weights of blame and victimhood?
Yeah.
Like what was that like for you?
Yeah. It was definitely a process. And like she spoke to that a lot. Like she used to say, I will help you systematically forgive someone. Like there is a system and steps you can follow. And if you do these things, like it will just happen, kind of thing. And
you're like, haha.
Yeah, I'm like, ha, that's what you think. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like subtle over time, but it was a mixture of like unpacking the story, separating out facts from like my narrative, And then there were some meditations she had me do like daily where I would sit and basically I would imagine my dad and then I would imagine my uncle. And I would try to map the feelings of love and compassion that I have for my dad onto my uncle, basically. And like really just the physical body sensations, right, of love. And it was it's a muscle that you like grow. And daily writing, like I'm willing to forgive my uncle for this. I'm willing to forgive my uncle for that. So it was like writing down every action that I needed to forgive him for. I think daily until I just no longer felt like I needed to, was kind of how we did it.
So you had to take all this time, and you had been in therapy for years. So you had been looking at it, but it was really focused on you. Mm-hmm. But now you are working with this forgiveness coach, but you are working with what happened and your emotions toward it on a daily basis, doing this journaling, doing the writing.
Yeah.
So you're looking at really old stuff that you did not want to look at, and you're bringing it into like your daily life, which is probably the thing you wanted to do the least.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like therapy almost can entrench you in your own narrative. Like there's not a lot of like redirecting the narrative in therapy, right? Like that's the beautiful thing about therapy is like getting to explore and kind of process your own narrative. Some therapists I have will educate me along the way, which I really like that style. But with the coaching, it was a lot more like, I'll never forget that, like, we're going to teach you how to be more responsible with how you tell the story. And that responsibility of just like, yeah, like really choosing, am I going to keep choosing victimhood and like keep choosing being the victim of the story? Or am I going to find something that's just like a little bit closer to the truth of what happened? Because if you think about what the truth of what happened is, like the way I think about it now, I guess I'll just to contrast, like before it was like my uncle did this horrible thing to me and it destroyed our family and it ruined my life and, those kinds of things. And now it's like, yeah, like a very sad or like a hurt man, took out his anger in the wrong place, or something like that. Like I think about all the other possible true narratives, because we'll never know for sure. And that's something that she stressed a lot too in our work, was like, we don't know. The truth is not knowable. She used to say that all the time. The truth is not knowable. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But yeah, just this idea that like, we can't know. There is no ultimate truth. And so, yeah, which one empowers you? Which one do you want to wake up to? Which one do you want to choose? And like, it's a stressful concept, but like, yeah.
Choosing the most empowering truth to you.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's enormous. Wow. And so where are you today with it? Right. So you did this work, you're in it with a coach, and how do you feel today? Because now you've transitioned to coaching other people.
Yeah.
Before we get there,
let's
talk about like, then and now.
Yeah. I also too want to touch on like forgiveness as a concept too, because I want to make sure that I speak a little bit more to what forgiveness is and is not. And like, I think a lot of people get hung up on like forgiveness being, what's the word? Like allowing that, or like forgiveness being like condoning what they did, right? Oh, if I forgive them, then it's okay that they did this. And for me, it's like not at all related to, like, I completely disconnected it from like that meaning, like any of that meaning, I guess. So forgiveness for me is, and this is how A Course in Miracles talks about it as well, is a change in perception, or even more adequately, a correction in perception. So part of it for me has also been getting in touch with the part of me that was never harmed. Like there's a part in all of us that is infinite, that is whole, that is untouchable by anything in our life. And he has one too, and so it's correcting the perception that I was even wronged to begin with, because it could never have been any other way. I think that is like, that was the biggest, I guess, most profound shift for me, was just like realizing that if I were him, I would have done the same thing. She used to say that a lot too. And this is where I think a lot about free will, and like, if he was raised in a certain environment with certain genes, with certain parenting, with certain life experiences that led him to make that choice, and could I have done any different with the same if I'd been given the same cards, Like, how much do any of us really actually choose? And Sam Harris has some really good meditations on free will, where if you sit and think of, and sit and like actually notice, like right now, like when I have thoughts or impulses, when I want to grab my water, like, did I make that decision? Or did it just like arise from somewhere, from nowhere, And so all of that is, when I think about forgiveness, it's perspective, and it's that shift in perception. So I just want to make sure I like explained that piece of it as well.
When you said that I had to get in touch with the part of me that wasn't harmed. Whew, that just, I had tears in my eyes. That is so profound.
Yeah,
because I've actually not heard that before, and that's just reclaiming your wholeness and yourself, and disidentifying from that action, being your whole brand. Identity.
It was my whole identity.
Yeah.
I literally was like, who am I going to be if I'm not this?
And it's interesting, in my master's program right now, I just read a bunch of studies about how, and this is so scary to talk about in relation to trauma. So just roll with me.
Yeah.
But these studies talk about how and this is the root of Buddhism as well.
Yeah.
Self-centeredness is the root of all suffering. It's shown in psychology. It's shown in religion. I personally can say that in 2022, when I was so depressed, profoundly depressed, I was just thinking about me and what's not working out for me, and how the world had been doing me wrong. And it was all about me. And it's so, I feel bad saying like, oh, when you are actually legitimately traumatized, that you're being self-centered, but there is an element in that.
Yeah.
It sounds like disidentifying with that. And so what does that mean for you? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And what's annoying about it is that, like, as a trauma survivor, when you come out and people say, well, you're being self-centered to like be, it's like doubly triggering. You're like triggering, So it's like, it's this really hard like thing to get around. But like, if you can just get around, like if you can just drop, the need to like center yourself in the narrative. Because Glennon Doyle also wrote this like beautiful letter from love about forgiveness. And she says it's God perspective, like it's God-like view of the situation. And if you zoom the fuck out, like you talk about too, yeah, you're just like, you're not the center of this story, and that there are other people in it. And yeah, every time that I shift from self to like service is when I feel better, and when my life gets easier, and when things start to flow again. Like, and I do it over and over again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I fall away from it all the time. But even just this last week, as I was telling you that I've been coming out of a dark place the last like 2 weeks or so, the biggest shift I made mentally was I got to start being of service again. And I was like, I started offering like free calls, and I started like putting together a workshop I'm going to do for free. And like, even though I'm stressed about money, and even though I need things to come in, and I was getting so lost in that, like, yeah, that like desperate me self-identification. Service is like, and that's why I think AA works too. You know, it's like that service is so, it's the most spiritual thing I connect with is service. It's the only thing that works for me is like, I got to get out of self. And then there's like also, interestingly, but then there's like capital S self too, which I want to talk about too a little bit in like IFS.
Cool.
And in Buddhism and like other teachings too. So that is that whole piece of you, capital S self.
And IFS is internal family system.
Yeah.
Form of therapy.
Model. Yeah, and parts work. And I've been learning a lot more about that as well. And self is very compassionate, creative, connected. It's like 5 C's or something like that. But
sounds like you. All those C's that you totally
when
I'm
like
at my
best,
right? Yeah.
When I'm at my best.
Yeah. But you're like building your, I mean, you know, they say in a lot of addiction counseling that our maturity ceases when we start drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, you could probably say that for trauma as well.
For
but
sure.
Our maturity at least pauses or greatly slows down as we're grappling with all of this. And so it's so, and I know for me, like when I started drinking at 14, and I had a trauma that happened at 14 as well, that totally. And when I stopped drinking, I would often think, I've only been sober now for 4.5 years. So I kind of have like the emotional maturity in some forms as like a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
But for you now, I mean, you're really in this new rebuilding phase of your identity and disidentifying with that trauma. So how was that for you? Like this baby, right? Like getting to know this whole new part of yourself.
Yeah. No, it's been a really cool chapter. So I had like an epiphany, I would say 6 months ago-ish. So for a while, I've been searching for the ending for my documentary. I've been like, well, how does this end? Like, what is the end of this story? Because I never got closure. And I don't know, for a long time, I didn't know what healing looked like, you know? And like, I was like, how is this ever going to be done? And I had this epiphany like 6 months ago that I had made it. Like, I was like, I'm there. Like, I healed that shit is what I would say. And it was like, it's how gentle I do my yoga. And it's like, it's how I sit out and watch the sunrise. And it's like how I play with my cats, and how I nurture my body, and how I talk to myself through stressful situations. And like, so I guess it's just that like coming back to self. I think that's just been the biggest.
The epiphany that you had 6 months ago.
Yeah, it was just like that I made it. That like, that's the ending to the film is like, and that's the ending to this chapter for me is like, now I just get to go do whatever the fuck Savannah was going to do before that shit happened. You know what I mean? Like, now I get to like return to my dreams and aspirations before I got derailed, you know? And there was never really a derailment, right? Because like this was all exactly as it was supposed to be. But I think a lot of times it can feel like trauma threw us off track. And so it's been kind of a rediscovering of like, well, what do I want now separate from that, and like separate from finishing the film, and like, yeah, what does it mean to just like live and be as a healed a person who like healed their trauma. And I don't like using the word like healed because like we're never done and everything's a journey and like all that stuff. But like for the most part, like what it looks like to me, which is what you asked earlier, like I don't think about it anymore. When I'm upset, it's not the reason that I'm upset. It doesn't like hold this like space in the back of my mind. We get through entire Christmases without talking about it, you know?
The anger's gone.
The anger's gone. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have like a lot of resentment or really any towards him. I probably still need to do work around like other people around it and myself and stuff like that.
Well,
but
you're getting out to the layers now.
Yeah. But sometimes I wonder if I am too soft, like for my uncle. Like I want so much good for him. Like I want him to heal so bad, and I want like him to be free. Exactly. Really. Yeah. And sometimes I'm like,
who is this? You're still getting used to this shirt, this like forgiveness shirt.
Yeah.
It feels really really weird.
Yeah. And like I question, and I question too sometimes, like, could this be like Stockholm syndrome or something, or like a fawn response or a people pleasing? You know, like sometimes I also like to investigate, like, where is this coming from? Like, is this genuine compassion, or is this me wanting to be his savior also? So like, there's like a lot of layers to it, I guess, is what I would say. But at least I'm not angry, is what I would say. And like, and I love my mom, and she's on her own journey, and but I think it's interesting. Like, it has been 10 years, and she is still almost as angry to this day as she was 10 years ago, and she refuses to like look at forgiveness for the most part. You know, like she just will not make peace with it, and I hate that for her, because like it's not fun to be angry.
No, not at all.
I hope she will one day like explore some of this stuff, but yeah.
And the thing is what I've learned is that a lot of times when we're raising our freak flag and shining our light and like going towards our highest truth and highest essence, that creates this powerful wave. Like for my mom, right? I got sober 4.5 years ago. I didn't tell my mom to get sober. I didn't, but lo and behold, she just celebrated her 1 year sober a year ago, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it creates this vibration, right? And so who knows? And we have to, you've probably done like Al-Anon, or you're familiar with like, we can't fix people.
Right.
But yeah, that's got to be hard.
Yeah.
So earlier when you were talking about that forgiveness coach, one of the things that you said was, she wants what I have. She has freedom. You have that now?
Oh yeah, for sure. From this specific thing? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's crazy that you can get there. I did not think that you could do that. And like, maybe I'll be shocked, like I'll turn 45 and have like a new meltdown about it or something, but like I don't think that I will. But I think there'll always be new layers like of understanding, maybe, as I get older. Like I wonder what will happen when I have an 18-year-old kid. You know, that's the thing that I'm always like, that might bring up some shit.
That's to work through.
Yeah. Sure. But and when he dies, I don't know how I'm gonna feel, like stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel when that stuff happens. But like, yeah, I have day to day, I have freedom from what happened, and I don't dwell in it, which is a relief.
So what do you what would you like to say to someone who has been traumatized, is carrying this, who feels like their anger serves them? Someone who is in your place, you're like, my anger is propelling me to make a documentary. It's fueling my art.
Yeah.
Right. Someone who identified, because I did in 2022, right? When I was so depressed, it was like the world was against me, and that like served me. It felt good and also horrible.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say? What would you, what are your words for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would say like, it'll serve you till it doesn't. Like it just will. Like at a certain point you'll just might be done with it. And yeah, at a certain point you might just see something someone else has and be like, I want that. Like I think for me, it had to come from that desire place of like, oh, there's another way. And just that you're like right on time. Like it takes as long as it takes to like get to that point, and you can't rush it.
Yeah. It's got to take its course. Wow. Well, Sav, this has just been like, you made me cry.
Good. Good.
I feel like my vibration has raised just by listening to your wisdom.
Thank you.
And now you are in service to others. So you've trained, you've worked with this coach, and now you're working with other people.
Yeah, it's going great. So yeah, just the last 6 months or so, I kind of realized that this was the medicine I wanted to bring to others. So in the form of healing so that I can tell my story kind of thing. So it's both the healing that you need to do to be able to write the book or make the movie or launch the podcast, as well as it is support doing those things. But yeah, I created a 3-month program to help you break free from the past and reclaim your story. So that's what I'm working with trauma survivors on right now. And I've been getting like insane results, which is really cool. Like it's really weird when you get like client results and you're like, I swear this is not me. Like I don't know who's doing this, but like something's working. So we're gonna keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just been really cool to like give this gift, pass this gift forward, like pay it forward. And my clients like heal me too and teach me things and reflect. They're my mirror all the time. So every call I get on, I'm like, oh my God, and we're the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You're such a humble leader and humble servant, which is the best.
Thank you.
Absolutely the best kind.
Thank you. That's what I want to be for sure.
Oh, you are. And, the work that you're doing, I'm sure you've heard this, the Carrie Fisher quote, take your broken heart and turn it into art.
Yeah.
Is one of my most favorite.
Me too.
And it's just, to me, it's God's work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like, well, and so many trauma survivors that I talked to when I was doing market research to be like, do people actually want this? Like everyone said the same thing. They're like, I just want to do something with this thing that happened to me. Like, what do I do with it? Like, I just want to help others with it. I just want to like get it out, tell my story. Like that was just like a theme through everyone I talked to. And I think it is cathartic, and not for everyone. Like there are people who are like, nope, I'm good. I do not want to like go share my story anywhere, really. Like maybe I'll deal with it in therapy. And like, that's just like I think it's a different type of person. Maybe, I'm not sure, but like, that's why I identify as like the spotlight kid. Like I think there's something in there's a certain type of person that is like, I want to do something with this. I want to help others. I want to inspire others. I want to share my story. And I don't know what it is, but if you have that, you're my people. So
cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Steph, thank you so much for sharing this really vulnerable story, for inspiring me, for making me cry, and for just continuing in this, like, you are just this consummate creator and healer, and your program that you're offering now is melding both of those two things together.
I know.
You're so in your zone.
Yes.
And you're helping people and getting these insane results. So, and I know it's not easy.
Yeah.
Right. And so thank you for having the courage.
Yeah.
To
Thank
do that,
you.
and for sharing everything today.
Thank you so much for having me. You've been such a blessing in my life, and an inspiration, and someone to look up to, and pave the way for me. So I'm blessed to have you, and your bumper sticker continues to give me so many good memories. Like I watch people all the time just reacting to "You Might Die Tomorrow" on the back of my car. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. So,
So Sav was actually one of the first people to put the "You Might Die Tomorrow" bumper sticker on your car. And I had it on my car for many years too. And it's insane. You see people taking pictures from like when you're at stoplights.
Yeah. And like nudging each other, like, do you see that? And they're like offended, but then also like, you can't.
Starting these valuable conversations probably. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we're definitely supporters of each other's work. And if people want to work with you, if they want to follow you online, where do they go? What do they do?
Yeah. Find me on Instagram. I am Sav Power. It's my handle right now. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll have you on again. I'd love to have you come on and talk about creativity. And talk
for
more
sure.
About channeling all of our emotions, trauma, happiness, joy, everything
I'd love that.
Whatever kind of art we're making, whether it's a book, a movie, or like landscaping your trees in a particular way, right? So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Sam.
My pleasure.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you are watching this, I have the camera down so that you can see Pajamas right here. She's just snoozing away. I'm here with Pajamas to say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here and being part of this community. It is just an absolute honor to bring this show to you. As a type B personality, I'm pretty hair flip proud of myself that I have reached almost 4 months of weekly episodes, and there is no end in sight. I am fully committed to this podcast. I am committed to doing 1 episode a week for at least a year, maybe beyond. I'm enjoying it so much. So know that when I create these episodes for you, I am having so much fun, and I get such a jazz out of bringing this content to you and just sharing my life with you along the way. So please, if you could, whether you're watching this or listening, leave a comment, do a subscribe, and share this with a friend. Be like, hey, there's this woman, Kate, and she calls herself an inspirer, and I think you might like her stuff too. She's really real. She's really messy and disorganized, but has some really nuggets of wisdom, or whatever you want to say. But do share this with a friend. I'd love to continue to grow this community and continue to bring even more amazing podcasts and stories to you. With all my love from Kate and Pajamas. Bye.